Hi there, my friends. Today is Wednesday, September 17th, and we are getting ready for day three of the court proceeding for the man who's accused of murdering my daughter. At the beginning, I said that I'm going to give you a update every day, but for the last 2 days, it was really, really chaotic to even sit by the computer. So I'm going to give you a quick update now, divided for the 3 days, and I will try to give you an update every day for tomorrow and day after, Thursday and Friday, and then we're moving on to the week two of the case. But sometime over the weekend, I will record a full podcast episode. So if you wanted to hear that podcast episode in full, everything in detail, where I could sit down and take my notes and share everything with you, then please follow and follow the show, and I will leave the link in the description of this clip. So Monday, we are keep in mind, depending on where you're watching me from, we are in Ontario, Canada. So if you live in another country, the laws might be different, the process might be different. So what I'm telling you, I want you to keep in mind, is what happens in a courtroom. Ontario Superior Court in small town Windsor in Ontario. It's under the Canadian Criminal Code, so that's how the process works. So if some of the things I say does not really stand out, I'm sitting outside because my house is full with of a family, and my children and my family. So I came outside. I'm sitting in the outside deck, and you could hear a lot of. We're on a garbage collection day today, so you will hear a lot of that. So anyway, I I so whatever I tell you, just keep in mind that might be different than how the laws and processes are conducted in the part of the world where you live in. If you live outside Canada, even if you live in the U.S., it's totally different. To keep that in mind. So anyway, day one, which was Monday, September 15th, the whole day from 10 o'clock when the court started to 4:30, almost 5 o'clock when we left, the day was spent on jury selection. So I'm not in the room, so I don't really know at this moment what the process was like, but all I know is there was over 50 people that came, and the judge and the lawyers had to go through some kind of questioning, whether it's somebody's ability to be impartial for both sides, somebody's connection to either the witnesses or knowing of a family member or knowing a lot about the case in advance. So things like that I'm imagining intellectually that went through step by step, that the court had to go through. That this was between the two lawyers, the crown prosecutors and criminal defense lawyers, and the judge going through this with the jury. So by the end of the day, Monday, around 4:30, almost 5 o'clock, they were able to bring it to the 14-12 sitting and the two alternative jury members. So that's how they ended. So yesterday morning, we started with around 10 o'clock. We started with what's called case arguments. I would call it, for our sake of our this recording, legalese, things that the two sides of this case, the crown prosecutor and the defense, two sides of who does what evidence, and things like that. So it was kind of like legal arguments that they were both making for something that they wanted to exclude or something that they wanted to exclude, whatever the case might be. So that's what happened the morning of yesterday, which was the 16th, or day two of the 3-week trial. And then we went for a lunch break, and after lunch break, 2:15, the jury came back. Jury was seated, got their instructions of what they needed to do, and I was the first witness to be called. But I didn't get called until past three, maybe quarter after three, 10 minutes after three, and then the crown prosecutor only asked me couple general questions: where my daughter was born, in where she went to high school, where she went to university, what time she met the accused, things like that. So it was the generalized. We didn't really get into the details of what she wants to ask me, but also we know that. Oh, I skipped the step. But when the jury was given the instruction, the Crown prosecutor took 20 minutes of what you would consider to be opening statement or opening argument for the Crown to lay out the case they wanted to argue, right? Give the general. I wasn't in there for that too, but basically it was the Crown arguing that they are going to prove this crime had taken place, and how they want to do that through their witnesses, through the physical evidence, whatever it is that they have. Like I said, I've never been in the room for any of these, from the preliminary hearing to the pre-trial to the last 2 days of starting it up, because the idea is, since I'm going to be a witness, they didn't want me to hear anything that somebody else said, or evidence that was shown, or argument that the Crown had made, and influence my answers, whether consciously or subconsciously. That's the idea. It was really challenging to stay out of all that, because my children were going in, and we couldn't talk about it. I couldn't debrief with my children at the end of the day. That was challenging. So I felt we were just kind of cut off from each other, and that kind of made it very difficult for me in not knowing what my children were experiencing, not being able to discuss it with them, and because I had to commit the fact that I'm not going to hear anything, and they had to agree by the judge's instruction of not to talk about what they heard. So since I am the first witness, when I finish, I suspect I will be on the stand for all day today, and maybe even parts of tomorrow, depending how long the questioning takes. So but I am hoping after that's done, I will be able to go in the room and kind of like hear the same thing the rest of my family, my children are hearing, so we can kind of like support each other through it. You know what I mean? So that has been the greatest challenge, like me being unable to support my children through, or even to hear them what they're experiencing or how their reaction like. So everybody they can talk to each other among themselves, and as you might know, my children are don't live where I live. They're all traveling from Toronto, from the United States, different states, because they work there. So when they leave, I'm sure they talk to each other among themselves, but not while they're with me in my house. And the situation was going on because we had a lot of this going on. If you can imagine, the process started for us like the first week of July of 2023. He was arrested June 5th. My daughter's remains were found on June the 6th. So basically, she went missing on May 23rd, May 26th, 2023. She spoke to me 6/12, and that's the last time, as far as I can tell, that she had used her phone to make contacts, and her phone was off the air ever since. So if we, for the sake of argument, say that she was she was went missing on Friday, May 26th, and he crossed into the country that same day, into Canada, and he crossed back to the States on Monday, May 29th. So we can kind of like intellectually say my daughter died somewhere between Friday night to Sunday. Okay, so that's the time frame that we're looking at. Okay, so and he re-entered back in the country Monday, June 5th, and he was arrested on June 5th, Monday. So about 12 days after she went missing, and her remains were found the following Tuesday. And after the medical examiner and coroners and all that, we were given my daughter's body on Friday. Um, Friday. So if Monday was the 5th, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we were given her remains back on Friday, June the 9th, and the funeral was Saturday, June 10th. Okay, so so if you can imagine, then in July was the first court appearance for this person, where he first appeared in court, and he was a so then at the time it was a video meeting, so it was, so we had to be involved, my children, my family and I be involved in this process from the minute that we had to be involved in this process from the time we we had that first court appearance in July of 2023. So it was the process of getting a lawyer, of organizing that, or setting up a court date. So it was one court date after another, and sometimes you felt like court dates, one court date after another, we talked about the same thing. You're just wondering why we talk about the same thing, but that's how the process works. So that's so far. So then we were involved in that, in all those, which happened almost every month until we got to the pre-trial in April of 2024. That's when we had the preliminary hearing. And in the preliminary hearing, if you remember, I shared in one of my podcast episodes that the role for that was for a judge to decide whether the Crown has enough evidence to support the charge they were seeking. The Crown was seeking first-degree murder and indignity into human remains. That's what the Crown was seeking. So a judge in the preliminary hearing has to hear the evidence. I don't know how much evidence they heard. Like I said, I wasn't in the room to hear evidence to decide, yes, the Crown has enough evidence to support this charge they're seeking. And that judge made her decision the end of May of 2024, and she said yes, the Crown has enough evidence to support the charge it's seeking. And that's when we moved. And then after that, we moved in the pre-trial, which was 1 week pre-trial. And the pre-trial's role was another judge to hear the evidence and decide which of these evidence would be permitted or permissible, in or admissible. I think that's the term, legal term they use for the actual trial. So the first judge was to decide if this charge was there was enough evidence for this charge. That judge said yes. And the second one was, or pre-trial 1 week, was that judge to decide what of the evidence the Crown has would be admissible for the trial and which evidence would not be admissible for trial. And that judge made their decision on this was their decision on June of on that judge made their decision. And then we had in April, I think, of 2025, and then we got a court date for the trial for September. So that's where we are. So if you could see, there are 4 layers to this process. First is the process that looks at, okay, does this person have a lawyer? What is it going on? Whatever. And then that process goes in. The person has a lawyer. The lawyer gets all the information the police have on this person, right? All the investigation, all the report the police had, his lawyer will get. And his lawyer would read through that, so they have the opportunity to present a defense case, okay? And then we move into preliminary hearing, which is to decide, is this charge, is there enough evidence for this charge? And then we move to the pre-trial, which is how much of this evidence should be given to the jury or shared with the jury. And now we are in that stage. This video seems to be longer than I thought, so it might go in as one video or it might go in as clips. I would like it to have in one video so you have the gist of it at one time, but I am not sure. It's about 15 minutes. I'm not sure how much of this could go in social media. I might have to clip it for social media. But anyway, I'm going to have another update for you at the end of the day today if I can keep it together, because I'll be on the stand for the most of the day and I might be shaken up by the experience. All right. Thank you. Please, if you are the prayer type, if you are the praying type, send me a prayer. Send me a positive thought. Keep me in your prayers, in your thoughts. Think about my family and I as we go through this tough time. Please take care of yourself and take care of each other, and follow the show so you can hear the details. I also have the campaign for Sahra 2025. Please support by buying a yard sign, buying the merchandise, or registering for the conference, registering for the walk. Bye for now.